Welcome to the second lesson. You get a little bit of a break that you had to wait for the second lesson. Remember when we left off, Socrates says, you know what? There's something wrong about what you said, and I'm going to tell you. If you want to hear it, only if you want to know the truth. And Gorgias is like, well, I want to know the truth, of course I do, but these people are tired, maybe we should give them a break. And everybody's like, no, woo, bring it on, we like your argument. We gave you a little bit of a break, but here we go, we're going to pick up where we left off. So now remember, Gorgias said, it's not my fault if some of my students do things that are wrong. If they use my skills of persuasion and they persuade people to wrong things, that's not my fault. Remember, that was Gorgias' argument. Socrates is going to say, that can't be. There's something wrong with that. So here he goes. He's going to lay a trap for Gorgias. Follow along, and you'll find out the trap.
Let me tell you then, Gorgias, what surprises me in your words, though I dare say that you may be right and I may have misunderstood your meaning. You say that you can make any man who will learn of you a rhetorician. Yes. Do you mean that you will teach him to gain the ears of the multitude on any subject, and this not by instruction, but by persuasion? Quite so. You are saying, in fact, that the rhetorician will have greater powers of persuasion than the physician, even in matters of health? Yes, with the multitude, that is. You mean to say, with the ignorant. For with those who know, he cannot be supposed to have greater powers of persuasion. Very true. But if he is to have more power of persuasion than the physician, he will have greater power than he who knows? Certainly. Although he is not a physician, is he? No. And he who is not a physician must obviously be ignorant of what a physician knows. Clearly. Then when the rhetorician is more persuasive than the physician, the ignorant is more persuasive with the ignorant than he who has knowledge? Is not that the inference? In the case supposed, yes. And the same holds of the relation of rhetoric to all the other arts. The rhetorician need not know the truth about things. He is only to discover some way of persuading the ignorant that he has more knowledge than those who know. Yes, Socrates, and is not this a great comfort? Not to have learned the other arts, but the art of rhetoric only, and yet to be in no way inferior to the professors of them.
Hey, what do you think of Gorgias' argument right there? He says, hey, look, I don't need to learn about everything. I don't need to learn about medicine. I don't need to learn about art. I don't need to know these things. All I really need to do is be able to learn how to convince people that I know about it. And if I can convince people that I know about it, they'll follow me. I don't even have to learn about it. They just have to believe I know something about it. Then they'll follow me. Well, Socrates doesn't fall for that. He just thinks that is the stupid leading the stupid. Because remember, he makes the point that if somebody really knows, they'll be able to see through your fake and not follow you. So he's kind of making the point that rhetoric is only good for leading stupid people, because people who know won't follow you. So he's going to go on and make this argument here. The trap is beginning to be set. Enjoy.
Well, whether the rhetorician is or not inferior on this account is a question we will hereafter examine, if the inquiry is likely to be of any service to us. But I would rather begin by asking whether he is or is not as ignorant of the just and unjust, base and honorable, good and evil, as if he is of medicine and the other arts. I mean to say, does he really know anything of what is good and evil, base or honorable, just or unjust in them? Or has he only a way with the ignorant of persuading them that he, not knowing, is to be esteemed to know more about these things than someone else who knows? Or must the pupil know these things and come to you knowing them before he can acquire the art of rhetoric? If he is ignorant, you, who are the teacher of rhetoric, will not teach him. It is not your business, but you will make him seem to the multitude to know them when he does not know them, and seem to be a good man when he is not. Or will you be unable to teach him rhetoric at all unless he knows this truth of things, unless he knows the truth of these things first? What is to be said about this? By heavens, Gorgias, I wish that you would reveal to me the power of rhetoric, as you were saying that you would. Well, Socrates, I suppose that if the pupil does chance not know them, he will have to learn of me these things as well. Oh, say no more, for there you are right. And so he whom you make a rhetorician must either know the nature of the just and unjust already, or he must be taught by you. Certainly. Well, and is not he who has learned carpentering a carpenter? Yes. And he who has learned music a musician? Yes. And he who has learned medicine is a physician in like manner. He who has learned anything, whatever is that which his knowledge makes him? Certainly. And in the same way, he who has learned what is just? To be sure. And he who is just may suppose to do what is just? Yes. And must not the just man always desire to do what is just? Well, that clearly is the inference. Surely then the just man will never consent to do injustice. Certainly not. And according to the argument, the rhetorician must be a just man? Yes. And will therefore never be willing to do injustice? Well, clearly not. But do you remember saying just now that the trainer is not to be accused or banished if the pugilist makes a wrong use of his pugilistic art? And in like manner, if the rhetorician makes a bad and unjust use of his rhetoric, that is not to be laid to the charge of his teacher, who is not to be banished, but the wrongdoer himself who made a bad use of his rhetoric? He is to be banished. Was not that said?
So here's Socrates' full trap. He says that if you're a physician, you have to know about medicine, right? Because otherwise you're not a physician, you're just a fake. If you're an athletic instructor, you need to know about exercise and those things. Otherwise you're not really an athletic instructor, you're just a fake. So he says, well, what about rhetoric? If you're really a rhetorician, you need to know about justice. Otherwise, you're a fake. So he sets this trap, and he gets Gorgias to agree that, yes, if you learn about rhetoric, then you need to know about justice, because that's what rhetoric is about. But then he says, well, where do they learn this justice? Do they have to already know it, or do they learn it from you? And Gorgias says, well, yeah, if they don't know it, then I'll have to teach them, because I have to teach them justice, or otherwise they won't know about, they're not a rhetorician, because rhetoricians are just. They only do the right thing. And then that's where Socrates sets the trap. Because he says, well, if you teach them the right thing and they do something wrong, then you didn't really teach them the right thing, did you? They're not really a rhetorician, are they? So he sets that trap and says, no, Gorgias, you're responsible for teaching them what is right. And if you don't teach them what is right and only teach them the skills to persuade, you're the one to blame. So that's how he kind of sets that trap for Gorgias and makes him look kind of like a fool, gets kind of angry, not very happy about that. But quick little, if you need to go back and look at that argument again, go back and maybe listen to it 2 or 3 times. And just make sure that you really understand the steps of that argument. How Socrates shows that no, Gorgias, you are responsible. If you're going to teach people to be rhetoricians, they have to know the right things to do. Just like if you're going to teach people to be doctors, they have to know about medicine. So if rhetoric is about doing the right thing, then you have to teach them to do the right thing. Otherwise, you're not a teacher of rhetoric. You're just a fake. Socrates trapped him.
Yes, it was. But now we are affirming that the aforesaid rhetorician will never have done injustice at all. True. And at the very outset, Gorgias, it was said that rhetoric treated of discourse, not like arithmetic about odd and even, but about just and unjust. Was not this said? Yes. I was thinking at the time when I heard you saying so that rhetoric, which is always discoursing about justice, could not possibly be an unjust thing. But when you added shortly afterwards that the rhetorician might make a bad use of rhetoric, I noted with surprise the inconsistency into which you had fallen, and I said that if you thought, as I did, that there was a gain in being refuted, there would be an advantage in going on with the question, but if not, I would leave off. And in the course of our investigation, as you will see yourself, the rhetorician has been acknowledged to be incapable of making an unjust use of rhetoric, or of willingness to do injustice. By the dog, Gorgias, there will be a great deal of discussion before we get to the truth of all this.